Welcome to the Everblack podcast once more, Spike. Always a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you once again for having me.
So you're heading back down to Australia for a tour in November. What's on the cards
Yes.
for a good time while on our shores?
All sorts of new and exciting stuff. In case anybody missed it, we did record a live record almost exactly a year ago at a young lady's quinceañera birthday party. That's a 15-year birthday party, and I believe like that it is a sort of a rite of passage into womanhood, like a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah would be. And we have a bunch of those songs locked and loaded to play in front of an Australian audience for the very first time, and we're very excited about that. And furthermore, I don't know how close your listeners live to their nearest record store, but what better place to come buy the record? Even I think we have a special tour only colored vinyl release than at one of our live gala events. And furthermore, that's not all. We do have something that we prepared especially for the Australian sensibility, and that's going to be something that we're going to play live, but it's also something that coincides with a 7-inch release that we'll be announcing very soon.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And as with playing say Spanish or Italian or German songs in the native tongue in front of a bunch of native speakers, like Australia is maybe not that different, but I'll be interested to see if our pronunciation and all that, because it's a fine line between an homage and then, as we like to say, appropriation. You know what I mean? It's nice to feel seen. It's not so nice to feel appropriated, I guess.
Yeah, that's a fair call. So we once again get you at Miami Marketta, which is brilliant. The last time we talked, we touched on the comparison of Florida man versus Gold Coast man. So do you think you and the fellas will be in fine form to make some Florida Gold Coast man memories while here?
Yeah, sure. I've been to Florida. I know what to do, and what to expect. And I've been to the Gold Coast as well. You know what I mean? Like we're not, this is not unfamiliar territory to us. You know, I have yet to try bath salts. I don't know if that's a thing in the Gold Coast. It certainly is in Florida. They're different, maybe only by degrees, but there are some important distinctions to be made between the two. Though they are spiritual, yeah, they are kind of spiritually bonded, maybe
Yeah.
sister regions, I guess you could say.
Sister cities. We'll call them
Sister
sister cities.
cities.
Yeah.
Miami. No, Miami, I would say you got to go to northern Florida to get the true experience. Like, ironically, northern Florida is the deep south, and then you go to southern Florida and that has more of like a Caribbean. A lot of people from the East Coast, from the northeast of the states, settle down there and spend their golden years in southern Florida. Up north, however, is where it's more what you would expect from the south, and maybe a little more resembles the Gold Coast, like Surfer's Paradise or something like that, a little bit more.
I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun while you're here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
Every
you
time.
and you're bringing dwarves along for the ride this time. Uh,
Indeed.
is there
Um,
anything you can inform us of to prepare us for the assault on area drums?
um, no, they've got a brand new record as well. The Dwarves Keep It Real. And a lot of what you should expect would be featured on that record, as well as old records and classic records. Like, I mean, for me, Blood, Guts, and Pussy is like that. That's you know as almost as close to a perfect punk record as they come, right? And that's not even to mention Thank Heavens for Little Girls, Sugar Fix, which is like a weird like grunge pop entry into their canon. I love that record.
That one hit weird.
Yeah.
that was a strange album, but it was
It was
great.
like a sub pop record. It
Yeah,
was like, it was like the first it was still a Dwarves record, obviously, but it was like a sub pop record of the time is what it sounded like to me. And then for the first time you had these sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, like, but 90s kind of pop songs. Like the other songs were just sort of like sped up,
yeah,
fast, like stripped down pop songs, but these were kind of more, Sugar Fix had more like fully realized, like, dare I say, melodic pop songs. And I really love that record. But Blood, Guts, and Pussy, that's as close to perfect as they come, I think. And
oh
so,
yeah.
yeah, oh, what was the word that they use? The kinder, gentler dwarves. I don't know if you can expect that, but I will say, and I've said this before, for all the controversy surrounding that band, when you go to their backstage, what you will see is are a lot of an overwhelming amount of fully grown, fully realized females of the species, and just having a good time talking. It's not. That's something important for me to note, because I am aware of the controversy surrounding the Dwarves, because when I first moved to San Francisco, that was kind of when they were first coming on the scene. They had recorded things prior to that, like horror stories, more great, kind of more, maybe more 60s punk,
Yeah.
as we call them. We call that uh here in the States, but I don't know if that's what you call it out there. But they had been doing stuff like that. But when they really made a splash in the city of San Francisco was with Blood, Guts, and Pussy in the early 90s. So I was certainly aware of them at that time, long before I ever knew anybody in the band. And so it was easy to draw conclusions about them, but most of the conclusions that you would draw are dead wrong. Very enlightened bunch of people, in other words. Like comedians, like the comedians that you probably use, certainly that I respect the most, are the ones where you don't know, like, hey, does this fool mean what he's saying? Like Jim Jeffries is a pro at it, but I believe, and I'm not, I mean, don't, no disrespect, but I believe that he is taking the mantle of sort of a long-standing American comedy tradition where you're not sure, is this guy the hero or the heel of the
Yeah.
story, and he doesn't want you to know, he or she do not want you to know that. And that's kind of what I think about the Dwarves. And we try to take a page out of that book ourselves with the gimmies. Like, if you don't know whether to feel amused, outraged, offended, then we've probably done our jobs. And incidentally, purely like speaking, just in a mercenary way, those are the nights that we end up selling the most t-shirts. When we hear the most booze and kind of jeers and raspberries, those are the nights, ironically enough, where we sell the most shit,
Yeah,
you know?
people buying merch ironically, because I went to the Gimme show
Yes.
and fucking hated it, but I'll buy the shirt and wear it ironically.
Yes, or not even ironically, like, give us hell. Me first and the gimme gimmes. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it may be a little bit of masochism. Maybe it's just fawning, like, approval and praise is boring to give and it's boring to get, at least to me. And so we try to troll and provoke an audience to you know pretty loud verbal expressions of displeasure and distaste, and we succeed occasionally, and then hopefully we're able to reel them back by the end of the show and sort of close the artistic circle, so to speak, and everybody has a good time, and I think, um I don't know, Australians are no strangers to sarcasm, and irony and sort of like what other people might call abusive humor. I remember when I first moved out west and would relay stories that I thought were very funny of things that had happened to people, and uh and then I would always get a reaction like, they did what? And you laughed? And I just thinking that that's perfectly normal. Isn't that what people do? But no, you guys are not sensitive, and I appreciate that.
We try not to be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the gimme shows, them it's mostly music at the front, but it's always part comedy, part cabaret, part let's see how much shit we can give the caper. Uh, with
Yes.
Sir
Well,
Joseph
he's
not
not coming on
joining.
this run, so
Yeah.
unfortunately we'll have to do that remotely. But again, that's not a problem.
Well, that leads me to the question of like, who are you going to rip on during the shows? And secondly, is there any elements that you'd like to work into the show to make it more flamboyant than it already is?
I don't know. We could do some easy marks like Elon Musk, with the Bitcoin guy, who else? Um, Maybe some Australian politicians, if you could help me think of any. There's always Pinch on the drums. He's good for a laugh or two, and he doesn't just sit quietly back there and take it. Like he gives as good as he
Oh
gets.
yeah.
You
Uh,
know,
would there be
rapier
any sort
wit.
of bravery award awarded to anyone that tries to give shit to CJ?
Uh, no, I've done it in the past, but I'm careful about what I say, and it's not just his imposing
Yeah, me
size and
too.
demeanor. It's the fact that he's a fucking Ramon, man. Like, come on. Like, this guy is
Don't fuck with punk rock royalty.
rock, punk, whatever, what have you, royalty. Come on, CJ. But yeah, no, I give him shit. And he, because again, he's got a sense of humor and he's also from back east, so he's not sensitive or precious about things. But no, I am certainly mindful of his imposing physical presence and no, don't want to get on his bad side, that's for sure.
God no. So, do you find that the flamboyancy is what's needed in these modern times, with most people having the attention span of a freaking goldfish? Or do you just throw caution to the wind, do what the fuck you want, and hope the audience laps it up?
Mostly the latter, I would say, because it's we're putting out what we would want to see out of life, and there are all sorts of maybe John Waters is back there somewhere as an inspiration, maybe German Schlager, sort of the visual element of German Schlager culture from the 70s and 80s. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's
I'll
like
look
their
into that.
version of trash. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Euro trash, and there's even a
Right.
word for it. Euro trash is a real thing. They might not be, as trashy, as unself-consciously trashy as say Americans or Australians. Like I think we are like the kings of trash. Like it's no accident that John Waters, whom I just mentioned, was an American guy. But I will say that places like Germany, Italy are no slouches in the unself-conscious, like trash kind of department, and Schlager culture from the 70s and 80s. Like I'm not going to say it aged well, but it aged like really weirdly, and that's sort of we take a lot from that. So look into it. We're like American Schlager, I guess is what you could call us. And it's funny how well that seems to resonate in Australia because we were basically the same thing. I don't mean to insult you, as an Australian, but we're outcasts. Nobody wanted us,
I mean,
and
you guys have trailer trash. We have bogans.
that's right.
So
That's exactly right.
and
Only yours
mostly
are
we
like
wear the
bad guys
bogan
from
thing as a
westerns or
as a sense of
something.
pride. But We
Your
try
guys
not to put too
are
much
like the
focus.
bad guys from westerns. Like it's a little different, man. You know, you do run into them in Florida or Mississippi or but like it's a little different out there. Because again, here it was I think it was based on religion, you know, whereas out there it's a different whole different origin story. But that being said, I think certain sensibilities they're very similar. Like I don't think the Saints could have arisen anywhere other than Australia unless it was the States. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
just like a raw rock and roll band, man. And what did they have? They had the Stooges. Um, they had Radio Birdman and maybe the first Ramones record, and that was it. That
yeah,
was it. Like they had nobody to on upon or barely anybody upon whose shoulders to stand, and then they became one of the bands that we all like. Chris Bailey, to me, that like you know one of the greatest voices in punk or rock and roll. Like and Eternally Yours. It's tough because every time I say that how much I love Eternally Yours, it feels like I'm putting I'm stranded down, which I am not. In the same way that I'm not, when I say that I prefer Dawn of the Dead to Night of the Living Dead, I'm not saying that Night of the Living Dead is a bad movie. In fact, it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Like even like European like art movie critics talked about like chiaroscuro
yeah.
in Night of the Living Dead. Like it's a great movie. Dawn of the Dead just speaks to me more. And Eternally Yours, just right off the bat, that horn section just puts it someplace that, you know,
It was unexpected.
yeah,
Yeah, like adding the horn section in there was like, this can't be punk, right? Like, but it just hit hard and it hit well.
man. And then that's everything else on that record, too. There are things that sound like a precursor to like the Violent Femmes on
Yeah,
there. All that weird sort of acoustic stuff is really unexpected. And again, his voice, the rhythm section. And you know, right after we're done, and if we weren't going to Japan immediately afterwards, right after we're done, there is Ed Cooper and Ivor Hay are doing a Saints sort of reunion, so to speak, with Mark Arm, I want to say, from Mudhoney, filling in for Chris Bailey, which that's kind of weird, but
yeah,
I'd watch it, you
yeah.
know.
There's a air of curiosity there. I'm gonna have to check into
Certainly.
that and see, yeah, see if I can
Yeah,
get
I
to that.
think what like almost 3 nights sold out at the Metro in Sydney or something like that, or maybe even a bigger. Like it's crazy. Like people
Yeah.
definitely want to go see that band,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
and I can't blame them because they're foundational. Um, but that's I think I went off on a tangent, as is my wont, and I apologize for that.
I don't apologize. I mean, that brings me to my next question. We did talk about the Saints last time as well. Uh, Bands that fly under the mainstream radar. Is there any up and comers that you could recommend, or any? I don't want to say vintage. It makes it sound old, but any vintage stuff that you determine to be a must listen to band?
Um, uh, Boy, tough to say because there's so much of it. Like I could just say what the stuff that I've been into sort of more recently is the psychedelic era cumbia music from Colombia and Peru. There's a lot of great groups, and there's like kind of a surf guitar or like in some cases like psychedelic fuzz guitar, but then like the rhythms from because the drummers are not fucking around down there. You know what I mean? And so like a lot of like African influence and then like its own local kind of that's a lot of the music I've been listening to. I mean, like the Australian groups that I would suggest like are already fucking huge. So, you know,
Hmm.
like Amo and the Sniffers, whom I
Yeah,
saw for the first time man, like before COVID, uh like I just remember thinking like, man, she's getting something out, you know? There's demons that girl is getting out and it's like it's amazing and inspirational to watch. The chats kind of proved that like the Ramones, like that sound is still the sound. Like it's still, as many detours as so-called punk has taken, like its roots are still like it still resonates and is still driving and uplifting. Uh who else? Boy. You know what, man? If I didn't look in my phone, I wouldn't be able to think of it, and I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to look at what the last thing that I bought was. But yeah, no, I have been listening to a lot of cumbia music. Um, and just like we were talking about 60s punk before, there's always something new that you haven't
Yeah.
discovered from like that sort of like 66 music that they say originally, I guess it came from they say like so San Francisco was big for like psychedelic and hippie music and as was Los Angeles, but apparently a lot of those groups came from like San Antonio and other parts of Texas, and came to the Bay Area and to Los Angeles, and that's where a lot of that sound, like that kind of 66, what we would call 60s punk sound comes from. And there were all these obscure bands that like you hear some of them on like Pebbles compilations and stuff like that. Or what was one that I bought in Australia not too long ago? Down Under Nuggets or Nuggets Down Under or something like that. What a great like the Bee Gees are on it. You know what I mean? Like how many eras has that
Yeah.
band lived through? The beat era, the like the weird 70s AM rock era, the
Yeah.
disco era, like everything. The Decoys was another band that I had never heard of that they did a song called Bad Time, which is a great song. But I don't think they ever did anything else and it was a cover.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that's about it. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know if you've heard of Shannon and the Clams. They're
No.
kind of taken off. Like they're actually kind of like very popular actually, but they are a once Bay Area band, although Shannon moved to Los Angeles, but I think several of them still live here in the Bay. But that's a great band. And kind of take a lot of their juju from or juju or mojo from that 60s punk sort of idiom and surf music and stuff like that. That's a lot of what I've been listening to lately.
Awesome.
Boleros.
Definitely some gems to check out then.
Yeah. Oh, by all means. Um, and it's different
So, I mean, the touring never stops for you guys. So what's next? I mean, you've got
until it
Australia
stops.
and then Japan. So what's next after that?
The UK, where we're going to play some Christmas shows all over the United Kingdom, and well, Ireland. Part of Ireland is Europe, but we're going up as far as Glasgow. We're going down as far as Dublin, um, all over. And England's Christmas vibe is pretty strong, so we're looking forward to that. And then we're done for the year. Then it's Christmas time,
Yeah.
Miller time, as we say here in the States. And which I'm sure you have beer purity laws, so you don't even know what Miller is, but anyway, but that's just sort of a figure of speech. No, and then that's it. And then in 2025, we'd like to head out to Mexico and South America. And like I said before, play some of these songs in Spanish to a Spanish speaking audience and see
Yeah.
if the pronunciation is accurate, see if they feel seen or appropriated or just appropriated.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Spike.
Thank you so much.
Cannot wait to see you guys in November. See you at Miami Marketta once more. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here, dude.
Not at all. Thank you for yours. Have a good day at work, man. Thank you for getting up so early.
Not a problem, dude. Have a good one.